I was listening to the internet. It's about mathematics. There was this library in the City of Light in Kemet. Kemet eventually became known as Egypt by the Greeks. In this City of Light, this huge library, eventually, the last time it was seen, this library, it was run by a woman. The invaders, pretty much burned everything to the ground. But before that, the Persians visited this library and they were amazed by its beauty and decided to build a library similar in Persia. So they started getting books, yeah, on all subjects in all languages, ancient Greek, Egypt, Pali, Sanskrit, and eventually they themselves was overrun by another group of people as the Persian empire collapsed. And this new group of people, they decided to keep the library intact, even though they didn't understand what was written. They decided to keep it and started gathering, people in order to decipher what was written. It was by the study of these books, which came from India and Greece and etc., that the decimal system was introduced into the West, because up until then we were using the Roman numerals that looked like sticks in the ground, and made calculation pretty difficult. So, so these Persian, scholars studying Indian mathematics, they they revolutionized the way we do calculation. Not only that, they are also responsible for the Renaissance, because it was these scholars in Persia that translated ancient Greek natural philosophy into Latin. And it was through the monasteries, France and Spain and Italy, that the monks themselves started, because the monks was the ones who read and write. Nobody else could read and write properly. It was the monks, what they called the scribes, or prophets, or whatever. And it was they themselves who started this revolution. Yeah, this revolution in the Roman Empire. This Renaissance, it was just a game of attrition. It was allowed. It was allowed around the 1200s. There was this philosopher king that was appointed as emperor, you know, and the philosopher king had a master who was a Platonist, and he gave his master the position of pope. It didn't last long. It was like 2 to 4 years that they, had the privilege of, controlling the empire, because they were, unalived after that. But they opened the floodgates. They allowed the philosophy from the Greeks, yeah, to flood academia and to revolutionize the way of thinking, you know. Because up until then, yeah, they were still locked in the Judeo-Christian, mindset, rigid, control mindset. But then again, around the 1500s, what's his name? Um, Constantine. Um, he gathered, the scholars of the time in Nicaea to come up with a manuscript similar to the Talmud, in order to control the population once again, because the Renaissance was, destroying or liberating. It was liberating the minds of the people, but at the same time, it was a threat to the system. This Renaissance was almost like a threat to the power system. So Based on the Talmud, they come up with texts, for Christianity, Catholics, and Jews and Muslims, and they decided to impose them. Yeah, they decided to impose them over the population. So anyway, this was just some thoughts, information I gathered. Have a nice day.